Hey y'all, hope you're doing well today. It's Brother Kevin here with another lesson from Beacon Baptist Church, and I hope you're doing well. And we're going to continue our series in Esther, our third lesson today. Let's see, we've learned a few things about the book of Esther. We learned that God has a plan and a purpose for your life, or rather, your life was made for a purpose that God has for you. And then we learned that doing the right thing is not always easy, but it is always the best thing to do. And then today we're going to talk about how God is always in control. As we went through the book of Esther, we found out there were so many things that happened throughout the book of Esther. We saw that God's name was not mentioned through the book of Esther, but God's hand was seen throughout the book of Esther. We saw the vacancy, that the queen got fired and they needed a new queen. And we found that God had made Esther a beautiful person, just a person that can be a queen one day. And of course, all the circumstances work together. We found that Mordecai told the king that Bigthan and Teresh were planning to kill him. And we found out that Haman was wicked and that he wanted to kill the Jewish people. And God seemed to work everything out to where he could be glorified. And that's the way God works. And I'll take you to a verse. It's my favorite verse in the Bible. And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, are the called according to his purpose. We realize that not everything that happens in life is good. We realize that everything, boys and girls, that comes into life may not be pleasant. There's people out there, Christians out there that deal with so many hardships and things that come into their life that are not pleasant. But you know what? Our God is a God that is so wonderful, a God that is so wise, a God that is so powerful that he can work all of those things out for his good, or for your good and his glory. And you know what? That's exactly what God did through the book of Esther. We found out that Esther came before the king and asked for the banquet. We found out that Mordecai had told that Bigthan and Teresh were going to kill the king, and it just so happened that one night the king couldn't sleep, and that he asked for a book to be brought to him. And as he was reading through that book, he found out about Mordecai, and he learned about Mordecai and all these different things that happened. But know this today, that through the book of Esther and in your life, boys and girls, God works all things together for good. And you know what God's trying to do? If you're a Christian listening to this, God is trying to build you to be more like Jesus Christ. As a matter of fact, in that verse, Romans 8:28, there's a great verse that comes after it where we find out why do bad things come into our life and how does God make it go to our good. Romans chapter 8 is my favorite chapter, one of my favorite chapters in the Bible. It has my favorite verse in the Bible. But Romans chapter 8, verse 28, we just read just a second ago. But the Bible says, and we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are called according to his purpose, for whom he did foreknow, he also did predestinate to be conformed to the image of his Son, that he might be the firstborn among many brethren. So what on earth is that Bible verse talking about? The Bible talks about how God knows you. If you're a Christian, you love him. God works all things together for your good and his glory. God works all things together. Not all things are good, but all things God works together for good. And it talks about how God knows you. And if you're a Christian, God has already made it. So he's going to build you to be like Christ. And so that's what we learn. One of the greatest lessons that we learn from the book of Esther is that God has a plan. God is in control. Young person, I don't know what's going on in your life today. Boys and girls, you might be going through some difficult things with all this that's been going on in our world. You might be having a hard time. Maybe you wish to go back to school and you can't. I don't know all that's going on, but I do know this. God works all things together for good. Think about it this way. Nobody wants to eat really a handful of flour. Nobody that I really know of is just going to spoon in the sugar or the cake shortening. Nobody really that I know is going to eat a raw egg. Some people do. And those ingredients are not really something that you would take by themselves and eat them. However, if you put them in a fire and put them in the oven and mix them up real good together, guess what comes out? Cake. And everybody seemingly loves cake. I'd love to enjoy me some cake today. But if you don't get anything out of the lesson today, get this. God's working, and he's working all things together for good. And he's in control today. And boys and girls, you can trust God with any circumstance and every circumstance because he knows what he's doing. Hope you have a great day today. Praying for you. Looking forward to seeing you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.